Elise Stefanik, Republican conference chair. She's on the House Armed Services Committee, and nobody questions hostile witnesses like she does, I can tell you that. It's a pleasure to have you. I want to start with you on this immigration issue. Joe Biden blows up the border, over 90 executive orders. All he has to do is reverse those executive orders. We don't need a law in Congress. Do we, Congresswoman, that says follow existing immigration law? When do we pass a law that says follow the law? What has Joe Biden done here?
Joe Biden has created the most catastrophic border crisis in our nation's history, and the American people know it. That's why if you look at the polling, Mark, President Trump is polling over 30 points ahead when it comes to handling of border security and illegal immigration. House Republicans passed the Secure the Border Act a year ago. Joe Biden refused to support that bill, in fact, threatened to veto that bill, and Chuck Schumer killed that bill. So it's House Republicans who have led legislatively to secure the border. It was Joe Biden who months ago said he didn't have the executive authority to fix this border crisis, even though the American people know that it was his executive actions that created this border crisis. So this latest desperate executive order that Joe Biden has put out, it is political desperation, and it only further fuels the illegals who are able to cross both our southern and northern borders. It's
unbelievable, isn't it? The propaganda that comes out of this guy's mouth and the media that run with it. And people say, what are you going to say to Joe Biden who says we need a bipartisan bill? Bipartisan bill, Congresswoman, I think 3 Republicans supported it. It was negotiated in secret. One of the Republicans, Mitch McConnell, voted against his own bill. And what would the Joe Biden bipartisan bill have done to illegal immigration?
It would have further fueled the fire, and it would have had opened up the floodgates for more illegal immigrants to pour into this country. It would not have ended catch and release. It would not have reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy. We know what a secure border looks like. It looks like President Trump's effective border security policies when we had the most secure border in my lifetime. That's why House Republicans opposed this pro-amnesty negotiated behind closed doors that Joe Biden politically wanted to bail him out to cover up for this border crisis that he has created. And I'll tell you, Mark, I've gone to the border, both the southern and northern border firsthand. I represent the Swanton sector of the northern border. We have seen illegal crossings skyrocket under Joe Biden's failed leadership, including those on the terror watch list. This is a national security crisis, an economic crisis, and it is a constitutional crisis because if you don't have borders, you lose your sovereignty as a nation. So this is an issue House Republicans are going to win on. And when we elect President Trump, continue to grow the House Republican majority and flip the Senate, we will make sure that in addition to President Trump's executive orders, that we get Secure the Borders Act signed into law.
You know, Congresswoman, the Democrats keep saying we need a law. They keep saying the system is broken. Well, first of all, what kind of law would they support? A law that would enshrine, as you point out, open borders, illegal immigration, sex slavery, kids sold into slavery. They don't want to do a damn thing about it. You had your H.R. 2 and they killed it. That's number one. Number two, do they keep count of the number of women who are sold into sex slavery? Do they keep count of the number of children now who are sold to pornographers? Do they keep count of any of this? I notice they're very interested in keeping count of what goes on in the Middle East with the Israelis and the Palestinians. Do we keep count of the amount of mayhem and anarchy and inhumanity that's going on the southern border as a result of this president?
It gets worse even than what you laid out, Mark. Think about it. Joe Biden's Department of Homeland Security does not know, has lost track of nearly 100,000 minors who are in sex slavery, who are being human trafficked. It is a humanitarian travesty, and it's all on Joe Biden's watch. He has created this border crisis lock, stock, and barrel, and the American people are going to hold him accountable. You're exactly right that President Trump's executive orders created the most secure border, both on the northern and southern border in our nation's history. That's why the bill that House Republicans passed with strong support, despite our very slim majority, we passed the Secure the Border Act to enshrine those Trump executive orders. And the Democrats can't have it both ways. They say, first, Joe Biden doesn't have the executive authority, and then they put out a desperate executive order. It is offensive to the American people and voters because they know that Joe Biden's executive actions on day one opened up the border. It allowed catch and release and has created this crisis of transferring of illegals to places all across the country. So it's not just the border states and communities that are impacted. It's every state is a border state. Every community is a border community. And it is in crisis because of Joe Biden. And President Trump is going to secure the border with the help of House Republicans and Senate Republicans.
I mean, for God's sakes, he's flown in 500,000 foreigners into the country, affirmatively gone and gotten them and brought them to the country. And Bill Malugin of Fox, who's superb, he was on the border. He said nothing's changed. And that's the truth. Nothing's changed. When we come back, what is it with Joe Biden and his hate for the Israelis in the state of Israel? You're one of the few people to ever speak to the Knesset there. What is it about him and his embrace of Iran and funding the enemy? We'll be right back. Lee Stefanik, if I were somebody who wanted to undermine Israel, prevent Israel from winning a war, and ensuring that Israel cannot survive with a two-state solution or all the rest, I would adopt Joe Biden's demands. What is his problem?
Well, it is anti-Semitism that is a growing strain in today's Democrat Party that has now become mainstream, and it is anti-Israel. At every opportunity, Joe Biden has equivocated morally and turned his back on Israel. I was honored to be invited by the Speaker of the Israeli Knesset, Speaker Ohana, to deliver remarks about the importance of the United States standing with Israel. This was the same week that Joe Biden attempted and is still withholding military aid that Congress passed in support of our most precious ally in the Middle East. You have an administration that's Obama 2.0, prioritizing Iran and undermining Israel, and it's created chaos and national security threats around the world because of Joe Biden's weakness on the world stage.
And quickly, to your knowledge, you sit on the Armed Services Committee. What is this administration doing to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon? And then we read in the papers that this administration is leaning on France and the UK not to rebuke Iran for its nuclear program. What do you make of that?
Well, what I make of it is this is a continuation of the Obama administration, including some of the same individuals who are at the table in terms of these discussions, whether it's working through European countries to pave the way for Iranian nuclear weapons capability. Remember, Mark, this is the same administration and the same State Department that put out an official statement mourning the loss of the Iranian president. Let me tell you what, the Iranian people who have been abused by the Iranian president and the regime, they did not mourn the loss of this president. And yet this is the same administration who is turning their back on Israel. So it's Obama 2.0. It is failure. Compare that to the historic achievements in the Middle East of President Trump, whether it's the Abraham Accords, whether it's the recognizing Jerusalem as the eternal capital and moving our U.S. embassy there. And we had peace in the Middle East under President Trump. And voters know that going to the polls this November.
Lee Stefanik, I want to move quickly to another subject, this Stalinist Star Chamber that took place in Manhattan. You're a New Yorker. And I believe you filed an ethics complaint against this acting state judge, did you not?
I did. I filed multiple ethics complaints. This is shredding our democracy. The mainstream media and Democrats accuse the right, but it's really Democrats who are attacking our democracy. When you take the judge in the New York case, this was a zombie case taken up by Alvin Bragg, a corrupt, radical Democrat prosecutor who is releasing violent criminals on the streets, which is why we have a crime crisis in New York. And you have a judge who donated to Joe Biden and whose family members are profiting to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars, raising money for Democrats like Adam Schiff and Joe Biden because of this trial. So this is a political witch hunt. They jury shopped as well, asking jury members whether they followed Donald Trump on social media. They didn't ask that if they followed Joe Biden. And the American people know that this was rigged from the start, and it is an affront to us. President Trump is correct that the real verdict will be rendered this November on Election Day when President Trump wins overwhelmingly. And I also think in New York, the fact that President Trump is within 6 points, a traditionally blue state, means that momentum is moving in our direction because people see this for what it is. If they can go after President Trump and political opponents, they can go after any American.
Well, just me speaking, I am pleased, at least what I'm reading in the newspapers, that you are potentially under consideration as a running mate to Donald Trump. I just think you're great. And I want to thank you very much, Lee Stefanik. Keep up the fight, and God bless.